Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to this panel about Labcorp. Today, we're going to have a slightly different format. Instead of an information session like we did in the past, we're going to have two of our most recent graduates from Cohort 2 who are going to share their experiences. So, just very brief introduction for those who never heard about Labcorp. Labcorp is a DOE program that provides a specialized training curriculum aimed at accelerating the transfer of clean energy technologies from national laboratories into the commercial marketplace. And it does it by establishing a set of proven training methods that equip DOE laboratory scientists with a better understanding of the commercialization process. So we had so far 4 cohorts. We had 8 Argonne teams graduate from these cohorts. And today we're going to talk to Jason and Jessica from Cohort 2. Before we move to the panel, just information. Currently, a call for application for Cohort 5 is actually open. You can find info, more info, and apply in the Inside Argonne Labcorp page, or also on the external webpage. Deadline for application is October 7th. So let's move on to the panel. As I said, we have Jason Harper, who's been a principal investigator for Team Smart Charge Adapter, and Jessica Linville, who's been entrepreneurial lead for Team Ready Water. So I'm going to ask them a few questions, and then hopefully they'll have some great insights to share with us, and hopefully they can motivate some more of you to apply to this program. So to start, what kind of technology market did you explore during your Labcorp training?
So we were looking at cooling tower applications, ranging all the way from power plants down to commercial buildings. Part of Labcorp was discovering which of these applications have the best market, the best need for our technology. And what we've settled on is applying our technology to mid-sized institutions such as universities, hospitals, data centers, and airports. So going through the Labcorp was really important to us to understand what are some of the barriers, what are some of the hesitations to using our technology in these different markets so that we can, figure out which one is the most likely place for our technology to be adopted.
So our technology was the Smart Charge Adapter. It was a handheld plug-and-play device that goes between any plug-in electric vehicle and charge station. And the device itself actually enabled 3 things. Metering, so it had an embedded sub-meter in the device itself, so we could look at energy consumption, power, real-time energy analytics. Monitoring, so we could actually look at the charge session. Is the vehicle charging? Is it connected to a charge station? Things like that. And then control. So we could take over, control the charge session, so we could increase or decrease the charge rate, as well as stop or start a charge session. And initially going to Labcorp, I was the principal investigator, so I thought I had everything figured out. Going in, I was going to partner with the utility, set up a smart charging program, and it'd be a multi-sided market where there's benefits for both the utility and the EV driver. Getting into Labcorp, we really had a focus, and we ended up focusing more on a charge station network operator business model. And so basically with the Smart Charge Adapter, dumb non-network charge station owners can convert their charge station to a smart network charge station, as well as existing charge station owners that have more of a smart networked charge station, they can convert over to a low-cost network and save on monthly networking fees.
Thank you. So what was your role in the Labcorp team, and how that turned out into actual actions? What did you do over these 7, 8 weeks of training?
So I was the entrepreneurial lead. I spent most of my time setting up the interviews, finding people to talk about, understanding the market. I guess one piece of advice, if we can go there, is to find a society that's in your market, that's in your area, and find a customer list or a member list in order to use that to find some of these interviews, to set them up, to conduct them, to build the PowerPoints and things of that nature.
So my role, again, I was the principal investigator, which allowed me to do more of the technical questions and things like that. But I also was very involved with the customer discovery interviews, setting up the interviews. I tried to be involved with every single interview that we performed, just so I was there and got firsthand feedback on how it went, and then meeting with the team and whatnot. So that was kind of my role.
Okay, now let's get into the more the hot questions. What is the most important thing you learned that you didn't know before?
I think the most important thing that I learned is the customer discovery process. It was really eye-opening working in the lab, understanding this technology, trying to find the solution, and then going out and talking to the people who might actually use it and understanding that what we thought was the biggest value wasn't. That the value was somewhere else, and that it's easy to adjust the technology. For example, that our biggest change or pivot, to get into Labcorp terms, wasn't necessarily around the technology, but how we were going to implement it. We first thought we were going to sell directly to the end user, the cooling tower owners. But what we found was that they have been burned by other technologies in the past. And the only successful technology in this marketplace is partnering with the water treatment services companies. So it was how we were implementing our technology that we changed based on customer feedback compared to what we thought was going to be, when we started this process.
So I have to echo that. I would say that learning the lean startup methodology was great. I think it can be applied elsewhere as a researcher here at the lab. But in addition, I think every Labcorp team member learns a little bit different based on their technology. Based on what your technology is, the whole customer discovery process was huge. Getting out there, talking to your potential customers, using another Labcorp term, finding good product market fit, what your customer segment is, and what's the value that you provide them, and are you actually providing value, and will they buy that specific technology to meet their need or problem. So I think it was specific for us. Again, we pivoted as well, but just learning that entire process, and then learning the business model canvas, which is huge. If you are looking to create a startup, you learn how this is a tool utilized by investors, and how you can actually utilize that to go out and pitch and get investments in your startup.
Thank you. So since you both mentioned the customer discovery process and doing customer interviews, so I want to hear, how was the process of interviewing customers? Was it something that came natural to you? Was it something that you had to actually think a little bit about it and improve over time? How did it work?
It was definitely something that you improve with over time. Starting out, I tried to come up with questions beforehand that I thought were important, and they worked okay. But as you understand the market, you can have better questions, ask more pointed questions to get what you want out of the interview. There was a couple interviews that kind of ran away from me. They were sales engineers on the road for 2 hours, and they had a lot of time on their hand and nothing else to do. They were still valuable in the fact that I did learn a lot about the industry, but maybe not necessarily the best use of my time. So understanding how to guide the questions, asking open-ended questions to get the information that you're really looking for is something that you pick up as you go through the process.
I think the customer discovery process is its own set of skills that you actually hone throughout the Labcorp 6-7 weeks. The key is, as the principal investigator, is you love your technology. You want to tell everyone about it. But when you get into the customer discovery interviews, is one thing that they teach you is you can't bias the person you're interviewing. So it's really hard not to discuss the technology. So you have to word your questions in ways that doesn't bias them, but still gets the information that you need from them. And so that was a whole whole set of skills that you need to work on. And so that was great. But again, I think it was invaluable actually getting out there and talking to potential customers and really getting that unbiased feedback.
So do you think that these skills that you learned through conducting all these customer interviews, I mean, you conduct like 70, 80, even more customer interviews, you think that these skills will be useful also in other situations for other purposes? I don't know, for example, talking to your sponsor to get a grant or things like that. Do you think that that could be also a good use?
For me, I think it is applicable. So I work in the EV Smart Grid Interoperability Center here at Argonne, and one of the things we do is create enabling technologies. And originally, I really didn't get out there and talk to the end user. I just assumed that what I was creating was something that the industry wanted. Which I think I've done a good job in the past. But knowing now that maybe before I start on creating another enabling technology, I have all these industry contacts now that I've gained through, interviewing 70, 80 different industry stakeholders and potential customers to go out there and bounce ideas off them before I spend a significant amount of time creating something that maybe no one wants.
So, is there anything else that you would like to share that you learn and you think it's really something important, something that will be useful for you moving forward?
So the process is a little chaotic. It's fast paced, and it's uncomfortable in the fact that it's not what you're used to. But I think it's really valuable to get outside of your comfort zone to learn new and different skill sets and to be able to, take what you learn and apply that back to your research, because it will make you a better scientist, a better researcher, being able to understand what you're doing and how it actually applies into the real world.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I learned again was don't get discouraged. You might have some bad customer discovery interviews that they totally just hate your idea, and you just have to, take it with a grain of salt and know that that's a small sample size and still get out there. Even though if you keep hearing the same thing, obviously maybe it's a bad idea and you should pivot or do something else. So don't get discouraged. There was many highs and many lows throughout that 7-week period. So, but overall the process was great.
So I would say that that goes both ways, right? Don't get too discouraged when you get a bad interview. Don't get too overexcited when you get an extremely good interview, because that could be an outlier, and that not be indicative of your actual market. Okay, so how did you manage your time? Because you were supposed to dedicate a certain amount of time for the program. In your case, as a PI, was 40%. In your case, was 5%. Yeah. So how did you manage your time between that and your research activity?
So it definitely did take 75% of my time to be the entrepreneurial lead. I started my day out working on Labcorp, usually up and through lunch, finding people to contact in order to get interviews, conducting interviews, and things of that nature. And then, in the end, in the afternoon is when I continue doing my lab work and things like that. So it definitely takes a good chunk of your time, but it is worth it to dedicate that amount of time in order to do a good job for those 8 weeks, especially if you can, push back some of the deadlines on your research, because doing a good job is, being able to really learn the process and understand that will change your way of thinking for your research afterwards.
So I think if anyone that is thinking about going into Labcorp, I think you have to be passionate about your technology and entrepreneurship. For me, I did definitely use 40% of my time every week was based, just on Labcorp, setting up interviews, doing the interviews, conducting the interviews, interfacing with the team, doing team meetings, our industry mentor, meeting with them, meeting with the Labcorp faculty, getting feedback, creating the presentations. It definitely took up 40% of my time, and I would find myself even at night sitting at home on my couch doing Labcorp stuff, just reading about the industry, setting up, customer discovery interviews. So it definitely is a lot of work, but I feel it's worth it.
So, I mean, from one side, dedicating all this time to Labcorp, probably, meant that you couldn't spend the same time doing your science, your research. But so that's the downside. But I assume there's also the upside that after the program, after you learn what you learned, you went back and something changed in what you did. So can you elaborate a little bit on that, if that's true?
So, can you clarify that question? I guess you mean.
I mean, what you learned from LabCorp, did it impact your research at lab? So did you go back and do same old, or say, okay, oh, you went back and said, okay, now with this new knowledge, I can redirect what I'm doing in a slightly different direction, or expand on what I'm doing based on what I learned? Is there anything like that?
So since through DOE funding, we're still developing the smart charge adapter here at Argonne. I did take the customer feedback and actually rolled in new features or took out features that I got from those customer discovery interviews. So that was great. But specifically more on my research, I wouldn't say something specific to the smart charge adapter I could apply to another area. But the whole process of Labcorp, as I said, just getting out and talking to customers and learning that process. When I do go out to develop other technologies, that's something that I will incorporate. But to date, I can't give you a specific example where I took something specifically from Labcorp and in a general sense changed my workday or something like that.
So after going through all this process, and learning about the market, about product market fit, and so on and so forth. So do you think that you now have a higher chance of commercializing your technology after LabCorp?
So I've continued working on this process after LabCorp. I was able to participate in another program over the summer at the Austin Technology Incubator. It's their summer entrepreneurial acceleration and launch, which helped me figure out a few more questions that I didn't get answered in the commercialization plan from the LabCorp process. I also have started the Chicago Innovation Mentoring Program last month, and I've recently am accepted into the semifinalist of the Chicago Innovation Fund. And I don't think any of those things would have been possible without the LabCorp. And so we are definitely moving forward, trying to commercialize this technology based on the progress we made during the LabCorp program.
So I think it all depends on. I think there is a higher success or higher chance that it will be developed and licensed, but it depends on, I guess, from the LabCorp team member if they are going into it. Are they looking at more at a startup? Are they looking at more at a licensing play? I mean, what is their end goal? And I don't know if you could really answer that before LabCorp. I think that's the whole point of LabCorp is to get into it and find out, okay, is this a potential startup? Is this a potential licensing play? But I think one thing that did give me an advantage is getting my name out there to a lot of industry stakeholders and actually telling them about the technology. The EV charging industry is small. So, I've had multiple follow-up emails on, hey, Jason, have you developed this yet? We have an application for it. Follow-ups like that, I think it's been great. And getting out there and talking to what we thought maybe were potential competitors if we were a startup, but also potential partners if we were going to license the technology. And so we had multiple licensing partners that we talked to that said they'd be interested in licensing the technology. We've followed up with them, signed NDAs. So yeah, I would say definitely it has increased the chances of successfully commercializing the technology.
Great. So, Jessica, you mentioned, you participate in full-on programs and in innovation space. Jason, also, what happened after LabCorp for you? Did you go on and to do more? Did you continue the work that you started with LabCorp?
So fortunately, we did have some leftover funds through DOE that allowed us to actually apply to the Clean Tech Open Accelerator program. And so my industry mentor and myself went through that program. We're currently in it right now. So that was a follow-on to LabCorp, and I think it was great because it kind of was almost like it followed right on. So we filled out our initial business model canvas, and now Clean Tech Open really takes that start of a business model canvas and kind of we create these worksheets, and it kind of walks you through actually answering questions that are really hard. Some things that weren't actually brought up in Labcorp. So it was a follow-on, and it was great. In addition, I've been involved with the Chicago Innovation Mentor Program, so that's been awesome. And there's been other opportunities as well that have come from Labcorp. So.
Thank you. So I want just to stress that Argonne is a partner of the Clean Tech Open, and we're also a member of the Chicago Innovation Mentor. So these opportunities didn't just fall from the sky. We actually help Jessica and Jason get connected and participate in these other opportunities, and hopefully this help you move your project forward. So. I want to understand now, after you've gone through all these programs, Labcorp, Clean Tech Open, Chicago Innovation Mentors, where are you at now? What are your next steps? What are you planning to do?
So I have started a startup company around this technology. I have an option for the license. I'm currently looking for investors. So this is definitely something that is moving forward. I was not aware how much I liked entrepreneurship before the Labcorp program, but this definitely gets me excited about, getting something from the lab, something that, we think can have a real benefit to society out there and make it possible. So I am definitely moving forward with this technology in a startup company.
For myself, there are a lot of options that I'm weighing right now. One possible option is to not be a part of a startup, but actually have a startup license the technology from the lab. So there's an option for my industry mentor and my Chicago Innovation Mentor, lead mentor, actually to create a startup and license the technology from the lab. And then I would stay here at the lab, and hopefully we could sign a CRADA, and I could still work on the technology with them to bring it to market. But we're still open to other licensing options as well. With industry, we're still in talks with a couple companies to license the technology. So, we'll see how it plays out. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Good. Sounds like it's been very good developments for both of you. So, actually, I'm going to ask one last question. I don't want to keep this too long, Overall, after this, let's go back just to Labcorp, because that's the main subject here. So, do you think that this experience was worth the 7-8 weeks of the program, and would you recommend it to others?
It's definitely worth the experience, dedicating the 7-8 weeks to the program, and I have recommended it to quite a few people already. If you have any technology that you think is close to commercialization, that you think has the ability to make a difference, to make an impact, it is worth your time to, go through the program to understand the product market fit, to understand the market for your technology so that you can further develop it. Even if you aren't going the startup route, if you're going for a license play, if it's that close to commercialization, you could possibly find your licensee. Or, another technology to develop a CRADA. There's a lot of options and a lot of benefits from this program. So I definitely would recommend it to anybody who's thinking about applying.
I would echo that. I think the one caveat I would put is that you have to be passionate. You have to be very determined to follow through. I don't think it's worth it if you're just gonna kind of not put in your 100% effort, because it is a lot of effort. And so I think you have to be passionate about your technology and you want to actually do Labcorp. But if you do it and you give it your full effort, it's well worth it. And I highly recommend it.
So I would just want to add a comment, because you said if you have a technology that's close to commercialization, participate in the program. Actually, I would urge you to participate even if you're not close to commercialization. Actually, even more so if you're not close to commercialization, because if you have a technology that's not yet final, that you can still work on it, and you go through Labcorp and you get feedback that tells you, oh, maybe your technology is not exactly fitting, with the need of the market, then you can go back and redirect your research in a direction that actually leads you to building a product that's aligned with what the market needs. So there's no too soon for participating in Labcorp. Actually, in my opinion, the sooner the better. So are there any questions from the audience? So the question is, did any of your interview involves also talking to government agencies or just businesses? Is that right?
So I talked to the GSA, the General Services Administration, not so much as a DOE type of government agency, but actually as a customer. They have something called the Green Proving Grounds. So I was looking at, installing one of my units for one of their buildings in that program. But mostly I focused on my end users, my industrial customers, and things of that nature.
So I would say it was a mix. I did reach out. I talked to the DOE Workplace Charging Challenge director, I think DOE Fleet Program Manager, talked to like the California Public Utility Commission employees, the California Energy Commission, a lot of NGOs. So it was a mix between actual customers, end users, and industry stakeholders. I talked to a lot of utilities as well. So it was a mix for me.
Any more questions? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and look forward to seeing some applications for the upcoming Cohort 5. October 7 is the deadline. Thank you.